All right, so are you ready for this? You know, you sent in like a ton of stuff on dhole holes, and I gotta say, I'm kind of obsessed now.
Yeah.
Apparently, they're making this crazy comeback in Nepal that nobody saw coming.
Right.
And get this. It all started with a camera trap meant for something totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Clouded leopards, I think.
Yeah, clouded leopards?
Researchers were going through the pictures and boom!
Dholes.
So before we get into like the whole comeback story,
Okay.
remind me, what exactly makes dholes so special?
Oh.
They're these Indian wild dogs, right?
Yeah, it's sometimes called whistling dogs, for their unique calls. And they're fascinating.
Yeah.
You imagine like wolves, but with shorter legs and a reddish coat.
Okay.
Incredible athletes, super stamina,
Oh, wow.
crazy fast,
Mm-hmm.
and they hunt in these coordinated packs.
Okay, so pack hunters.
Mm-hmm.
That already kind of screams like potential for conflict with humans, right?
Yeah.
Especially if livestock is on the menu.
Yeah, you're getting it. Gahols definitely got a bad rap for preying on livestock.
Right.
Decades ago, villagers in Nepal used poisoning snares, even shooting to control them.
Oh, wow.
It was brutal.
So how bad did it get for these guys? Like, how bad did it actually get?
Well, in some areas like the Annapurna Conservation Area, they were considered locally extinct.
Oh, wow.
Vanished.
Gone.
Yeah, this recent study in Oryx even calls it a lost species for that region.
Wow, a lost species.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But then those camera traps catch them making this comeback.
Right.
How does a species literally bounce back from that level of persecution? Like, how's that even possible?
That's the big question.
Right.
Yadav Gimiri, who led that Oryx study, thinks dholes might have just hung on
Okay.
in protected areas like Chitwan National Park.
Mm-hmm.
And as conditions changed, they started expanding outward again.
Okay, but wouldn't those protected areas also be full of other predators?
Yeah.
So how did the dholes specifically make it through when maybe others didn't?
Well, there's something unique about how dholes pass down knowledge.
Okay.
It's not just teaching pups to hunt.
Right.
These packs have intricate, almost cultural knowledge of their territory.
Mm-hmm.
Best hunting spots, den sites, escape routes.
Mm-hmm.
This gets passed down through generations. So even if they're driven out, that knowledge remains.
Oh, wow.
Almost like a map to reclaiming their land.
Oh, that's wild. So it's like a built-in rewilding strategy.
Exactly.
Wow.
But remember this pack mentality.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword.
Oh, how so?
On one hand, it makes them incredibly efficient at hunting coordinating attacks, taking down prey much larger than themselves.
But on the flip side,
That pack makes them vulnerable.
vulnerable how?
If one hole eats poison bait, the whole pack can go down.
Oh, no.
It's tragic, and a major reason their numbers plummeted in the first place.
And that whole livestock problem.
Right.
Is that still a major point of conflict with humans?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
There was a 2015 study. It
Yeah.
focused on Western Nepal. That found livestock made up a significant chunk of the whole diet,
Okay.
around 20%, which might not sound like a lot.
But for those farmers, losing even one animal,
Yeah,
that can be a huge deal.
absolutely.
Right.
It's their livelihood,
Yeah.
their source of food and income.
Exactly.
So you can see how tensions can rise quickly.
So the poles are back, but they're walking right back into a landscape where that conflict is still very real.
It's more complicated than that, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the landscape itself has changed since they were gone.
Okay.
Tiger and leopard numbers have been increasing.
Oh, wow.
So now you've got more apex predators competing for the same prey.
So it's not just humans, they're fighting for their spot at the buffet table, too.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
Plus, there's this huge urbanization trend in Nepal.
Okay.
At first, you'd think that's good for dholes. Fewer people in rural areas, less conflict.
Wait. Yeah, that was my initial thought.
But here's the catch.
Oh,
Urbanization fragments the dhole's habitat, chops it up into smaller pieces. Can a pack animal survive long-term if it can't roam and hunt across large territories?
that's a good question.
We're not sure.
This is a real nail-biter. So they're back, but facing a whole new set of challenges.
Exactly.
Wow.
Plus, you've got threats like feral dogs and the diseases they carry,
Right.
like canine distemper, which can devastate a whole pack.
Oh, man. Okay, so given all this, what's the next step? What do we need to figure out to give these guys a fighting chance?
Well, the scientists are calling for more dhole-specific research.
Okay.
We know surprisingly little about them. They're talking about things like satellite collaring, really getting a handle on their movements,
Mm-hmm.
not just where they are, but where they're going, how they're using the landscape,
Mhm.
how they're interacting with other predators, with humans.
So like mapping out their world in detail to figure out where the points of conflict are,
Yeah,
and maybe more importantly, where those points of coexistence might be.
you got it.
Oh.
And it's not just about the tolls themselves. We also need to study their prey, especially sambar deer.
Okay.
If we can ensure a healthy deer population, it might take some pressure off livestock.
So it's about managing that whole food web, not just focusing on one species.
Exactly.
Okay.
But before we get into potential solutions, there's another fascinating angle to this whole comeback story.
Yeah.
Have you noticed the parallels between what's happening with dholes and another canine in Nepal?
Wait, you're talking about the Himalayan wolves, right?
Yeah.
They were almost completely wiped out too, weren't they?
They were.
And now they're making a comeback as well.
You got it.
Huh, it's almost
Well-
like a canine comeback tour happening in the Himalayas.
It is. But here's the thing.
These wolves are facing many of the same challenges as the dholes.
Oh, really?
Livestock predation, habitat fragmentation, competition with other predators.
Okay.
And this raises a big question.
What's that?
Are we going to see the same cycle of conflict play out again,
Oh, no.
even with government compensation programs in place for livestock losses? So even though there's this hopeful comeback happening, it's almost like we're watching history repeat itself in real time.
It's a worry, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that while the challenges are similar,
Right.
holes and Himalayan wolves are very different animals.
Right. Different hunting styles,
Yeah.
different social structures, maybe even different ways of interacting with their environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Dholes, with their complex pack dynamics and cultural transmission of knowledge, might be better equipped to adapt to a changing landscape.
Interesting.
Remember that Oryx study?
Yeah.
Bhaskar Acharya, a toll expert, talked about their cognitive maps.
He did. He said it's like they have these mental maps of their territory passed down through generations.
Right.
That's crazy.
Knowing where to find prey-safe den sites, escape routes,
Mm-hmm.
all of that gets ingrained in their behavior.
Wow.
It's almost like their ancestors are guiding them as they reclaim these areas.
Okay, that's incredible. But
Yeah.
even with these amazing adaptations, dholes are still facing some serious obstacles.
Right.
We've got competition from other predators, habitat loss, and the constant threat of human-wildlife conflict.
Yeah.
What can we realistically do to ensure their long-term survival? Like, what are the actual options here?
Well, it's not just about bringing them back.
Right.
It's about making sure they have a healthy, viable population with enough genetic diversity to withstand disease and adapt to future changes.
So how do we go from they're back to they're thriving?
Yeah.
It feels like a huge leap.
You're right. It is.
Yeah.
And there's no magic bullet.
Right.
But the good news is we're learning more about them all the time.
Okay.
And remember those calls for more whole-specific research?
Yeah, satellite collars, figuring out their movements, all that stuff.
Right.
But how does that actually translate into helping them?
Well, think of it like this.
Okay.
If we can track their movements, we can identify key areas for conservation.
Okay.
Where are they denning?
Mm.
What are their migration routes?
Yeah.
Where do those routes intersect with human activity?
So we can pinpoint those conflict zones, but also maybe find ways to create safe passage for them, right? Like wildlife corridors or something.
Exactly.
Cool.
Wildlife corridors are a great example.
Okay.
Imagine connecting those fragmented forests with safe pathways, allowing dholes to move freely, maintain genetic diversity access resources.
So we're talking about building bridges, literally and figuratively, to help these animals thrive in a human-dominated landscape.
That's a great way to put it.
Wow.
And it's not just about grand infrastructure projects.
Okay.
Sometimes a strategically placed underpass or overpass on a busy road can make a world of difference.
Okay, corridor, safe passage. It's starting to feel hopeful.
Yeah.
But what about that human element?
Right.
We can't just build our way out of this conflict, can we?
Absolutely not.
Right.
And this is where things get tricky.
Oh, how so?
Remember, we're talking about people's livelihoods, their cultural beliefs,
Yeah.
their deep-rooted relationships with the land.
Right.
We can't just impose solutions from the outside.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we get people invested in Dhole conservation?
For starters, we need to listen.
Okay.
Really listen to the concerns of local communities. Understand their perspectives. Acknowledge the challenges they face living alongside predators.
So it's about building trust, finding common ground rather than dictating solutions.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Sometimes that might mean providing compensation for livestock losses. Maybe helping communities set up predator-proof enclosures, or even exploring alternative livelihood options that reduce dependence on livestock.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act.
It is,
Yeah.
and it requires a long-term commitment.
Right.
We can't just swoop in, implement a few quick fixes, and expect everything to be fine.
Right.
We need to build lasting partnerships with communities, invest in education, and really foster a sense of shared responsibility for Dhole conservation.
Speaking of education, you mentioned earlier that we need to raise awareness about holes.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that so important?
Well, there are a lot of misconceptions out there about holes.
Like-
some people still view them as nothing more than livestock killing pests.
Yeah, they've got that bad reputation.
Right.
But there's so much more than that.
Yeah.
They're fascinating creatures, a vital part of the ecosystem.
Exactly.
Right.
So we need to tell their story, highlight their ecological importance, and show people how amazing they are.
Yeah.
Imagine kids growing up not fearing dholes, but being fascinated by them, becoming their advocates.
Okay, I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
So we've got research, we've got community engagement, we've got education.
Yeah.
It's a multifaceted approach, but it feels like a path forward.
It is.
A way to create a future where dholes and humans can coexist.
It's definitely a path forward,
Okay.
but it's not going to be easy.
Right.
Remember, this is a landscape steeped in history,
Right.
where the relationship between people and predators has been fraught with conflict.
You're right, and it's not just about dholes, right?
Right.
The Himalayan wolves are facing those same historical burdens.
Exactly. That's why this whole comeback story, while hopeful, also feels incredibly fragile.
Right.
It forces us to ask those tough questions.
Like what?
Are we truly ready to change our relationship with these animals?
Can we break free from those cycles of conflict that have defined the past?
Right.
Or are we doomed to repeat the same mistakes?
It's a heavy question to ponder,
It is.
but it's one that every listener needs to grapple with.
You know, as we dig into all this research, I'm kind of struck by just how resilient these dholes are.
Yeah.
They were pushed to the brink, but they never gave up.
Right.
They clung to those hidden refuges, held on to that ancient knowledge,
Yeah.
and now they're finding that way back.
It really speaks to the power of adaptation, doesn't it?
It does.
They're like living proof that even in a world dominated by humans, wildness can find a way.
I love that. It gives me hope, honestly.
Yeah.
Hope that even amidst all the environmental challenges we hear about, there's still a chance for things to turn around.
It's definitely a reason for optimism.
Yeah.
And there's always a but.
We're always a but.
We can't just sit back and assume everything will be fine.
Right.
This comeback is still incredibly fragile.
Yeah.
Dholes need our help if they're going to truly thrive, not just survive.
So let's talk solutions.
Okay.
We've covered research. We've talked about community engagement and education.
Right.
What else can we do? What can people listening to this right now actually do to make a difference for dholes?
Well, knowledge is a powerful tool.
Okay.
The more you understand about dholes, their role in the ecosystem, the challenges they face, the better equipped you are to become an advocate for their conservation.
So step one is to keep learning.
Yeah.
Dive deeper into those articles you sent us. Look for more information. Become a dholes expert yourself.
Exactly. And then share that knowledge.
Okay.
Talk to your friends, your family. Post about it on social media.
Right.
The more people who know about dholes, the more support they'll have.
I spread the whole love.
Right.
And I'm guessing supporting organizations working on the ground in Nepal is crucial too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look for organizations focused on villatal research, community-based conservation, habitat restoration. Even small donations can make a big impact.
So learn, share, support. Those are some concrete actions anyone can take.
And don't underestimate the power of your voice. Contact your elected officials. Advocate for policies that protect wildlife and their habitats.
Okay.
Support sustainable practices. Make conscious choices about the products you buy, the food you eat.
Because all those choices, even the seemingly small ones, add up.
Yeah.
They create a ripple effect.
Exactly. The fate of dholes, and frankly, the fate of all wildlife, is ultimately in our hands.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this mix of awe and responsibility. Awe at the tenacity of these creatures, their ability to bounce back from the brink, and a sense of responsibility knowing that their future depends in large part on us.
I feel that too.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that we're all interconnected.
Right.
What we do or don't do has consequences for the entire planet.
So let's carry this knowledge with us.
Okay.
Let's be inspired by the Dholes comeback story, and let's work together to ensure these incredible animals continue to roam wild and free for generations to come.
Beautifully said. And remember, the story of the Dhole is just one small piece of a much larger puzzle.
Right.
There are countless other species out there facing similar challenges.
Yeah.
Just keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning.
Because the more we know, the more we understand, the better equipped we are to protect the amazing diversity of life on our planet.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the natural world.
So, thinking about this whole comeback story and the Himalayan wolves too,
Yeah,
it really makes you wonder about the future of large carnivores,
it does.
especially in places like Nepal, where you've got this incredible biodiversity, but also so many challenges for both people and wildlife.
Right, and it's not just Nepal. We're seeing similar situations play out all over the world.
Exactly like we're talking about tigers in India, lions in Africa, even wolves making a comeback here in the U.S. So what does it actually take to make coexistence work?
Right.
To find that balance between human needs and wildlife conservation.
It's a complex question.
Yeah.
And there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right. It's going to look different in every place depending on the species, the landscape, the cultural context.
Yeah.
But I think the whole story offers some valuable lessons.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, first of all, it highlights the importance of scientific research. We need to understand these animals, their behavior, their ecology, their needs, in order to develop effective conservation strategies.
Right. We can't just guess we need data. We need evidence.
Exactly. And that's where things like satellite collaring come in.
Yeah. That's going to be crucial for figuring out their movements, their habitat, how they're interacting with other predators and with humans.
Right. And that data can then inform things like wildlife corridors or other measures to reduce conflict.
And it's not just about research. We also need to engage with local communities, listen to their concerns, understand their perspectives.
Because ultimately, conservation can't happen without the support of the people who share the land with these animals.
Exactly. It's about finding common ground, building trust, working together to find solutions that benefit both people and wildlife.
And that's not always easy.
No, it's not. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience. It's going to take a willingness to compromise.
But the whole story shows us that it's possible.
It does.
These animals were nearly wiped out, but they're making a comeback.
Yeah.
And if we can learn from their resilience, learn from the mistakes of the past,
Right.
maybe we can create a future where dholes and other large carnivores can thrive alongside humans.
And a vision worth striving for.
Absolutely. Well, on that note of hope and cautious optimism, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
But before we go, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who sent in questions and resources about dholes.
Yes. Thank you.
Your curiosity and passion for these animals is what makes this show possible.
We love hearing from you.
So please keep those questions coming. Keep sharing your knowledge and keep exploring the fascinating world of wildlife.
And if you're inspired by the whole story, share it with others. Spread the word about the importance of conservation.
Because together we can make a difference.
We can.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been fun.
We'll see you next time for another adventure into the wild.